Favorite chapter to see in operation? Space Marine 2 was my first real dive into 40k. I knew about it but very little info. Since then I've dove into the lore. My favorite chapter was Salamanders, but recently I started rolling as a Lamenter. I joined a game and another guy was a Lamenter, and he freaked out happy to see another Lamenter. Who do you like to see, or who do you feel doesn't get enough love? Ooh, okay, well, as far as who I'd like to see, or at the very least what chapters I like to queue up with and what chapters are good teammates maybe. I mean, Salamanders you would think, right? Salamanders, anyone who's rolling with Salamanders are probably picking up players very fast, leaving up stims and everything. That is pretty interesting. I need to keep tabs on which chapters are actually either good teammates or bad teammates. Chapters that don't get enough love. I mean, at the moment, I think Raptors, but we're going to get more Raptors stuff later in the year, right? So that'll be interesting. But yeah, honestly, it's as far as like running into players who are, rolling with like the same chapters as me or anything like that, I always think it's pretty funny seeing players who are just satisfied with playing as Ultramarines, because sometimes I do that as well, but mostly in the PTS just to make the gameplay a little bit more distinctive. And then, not to mention, I really like to dive into the cosmetics, or at the very least use them myself. So we saw the cosmetics, but I want to hold off on actually using them until they release, so I have something to look forward to. And honestly, yeah, the Salamander colors I'm very excited for, and the torch, obviously. And of course, yes, the champion skin. I mean, obviously, I think Blood Angel players, you would think Blood Angel players maybe could be the players who are like, speed running, maybe. But honestly, I'm not too sure if that's the case or not. I think that's just kind of a funny way to look at it, right? Dude, I'm super excited to see the Blood Angels champion on a side note. But yeah, favorite chapter to see in operations. I'm going to give some love to Salamander players here. Maybe Salamanders are out there playing as good teammates. Honestly, I think the biggest tell for me is that they put some thought into what they were rocking. If all they were running is just whatever has the most bling, the most gold, the most over-the-top stuff that makes even a chapter master look broke in comparison, it usually means they didn't put any real thought into it. They just selected whatever took the longest to unlock. Dude, at this point, with what we have with cosmetics, I am curious if we actually look better than, characters in the lore that actually rank above us, as far as the actual operation characters. But still, you can compare Calgar to how we look now, and it's pretty similar. I wouldn't say we could make Calgar look broke in comparison. I don't know, man. That's pretty interesting, though. I like the way he looks at this. Dude, honestly, I had a pretty big fail when it comes to this actual aspect, to look the most bling. I think, once I started playing PvE and we had the Dark Angels chapter pack, right? I was using the Dark Angels chest piece with the Ultramarine colors, and it was pretty funny seeing the comments on that and then looking back on it. Dude, that was rough. That was so long ago, though. It was, yeah, obviously when the Dark Angels first came out, and now I'm a little bit more aware of what I'm doing, but that is pretty interesting. I wonder how many players actually play within a reasonable ranking for their cosmetics, but I do think it's funny to see players just kind of blinging out and not really caring about it. Either way is fine with me, to be completely honest. I always find it curious how Blood Angels are topping all of the who do you play polls, and it's extremely rare for me to actually see one. So I'm fairly happy to see a Blood Angel, especially when I'm playing one. Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, I'll run Blood Angel colors here and there. They definitely look good, but obviously we're going to get a champion soon, and yeah, I've been kind of holding off on that until we get the champion. It's going to be all Blood Angels and Salamanders in patch 11, man. I swear. So many. Dude, yeah, right now I wonder if we see a lot of like Imperial Fist. Space Wolves. You know what? Space Wolves, I see a lot of them. I feel like when it comes to the who do you play polls, I don't see enough people vote for Space Wolves, but for whatever reason when I play in the game, I see them like all the time. I don't know. I see, obviously, you know what? You know who's the real answer to this? Who we actually see when it comes to chapters, or I'm not 100% sure if this is like a real chapter to consider, but yeah, I see Deathwatch people, and not just with the Deathwatch pauldron, like head to toe black, maybe a certain color here and there to represent the chapter they're like from, and then they are also Deathwatch. So yeah, I see Deathwatch players all of the time for sure. I like seeing any effort put in lore-accurate Marines. However, I really like seeing lesser-known chapters and successor chapters. Tome Keepers, Solar Hawks, Angels of Defiance, especially when they have the correct colored weapons, just hit right. Dude, okay, Tome Keepers were one of the first chapters I actually, basically looked up and was made aware of. I mean, when I was going through the game's, first colorways and everything like that, the Tome Keepers, specific brown tint really stood out to me because you can make like battle worn armor with it, but you can also make very pristine armor with it and look very cool. So yeah, when people were like, hey, what's your favorite chapter or whatever, one of the first answers I gave was Tome Keepers, and I still run with these colors every now and then as well. They do have a pretty cool colorway. But yeah, it's pretty interesting because yeah, this was one of the first chapters I actually looked up and was made aware of. As far as I know, they are like record keepers. They really harp on trying to understand their battles, at the very least understand their enemies, because that's how they feel like they can, overcome their adversaries. But I'm pretty sure their main thing is like record keeping and, just making sure they have all of the, consequences and everything, just so they can scour, information and, learn from it. That's pretty much what I've heard from the Tome Keepers, which is actually pretty interesting, considering where this channel ended up heading. Because yeah, we have a lot of interesting records here for the game. This actually just occurred to me. This is actually pretty interesting. I like to see that, dude. This was a good answer. But yeah, dude, Angels of Defiance is also pretty interesting. I've seen that colorway. That does look really good. Solar Hawks, I'm not too aware of. I'm not 100% aware of Solar Hawks. But yeah, dude, honestly, maybe more love needs to go out to the chapters who probably aren't getting a chapter pack, And yeah, just keep an eye on those players. Maybe those are the players who are actually playing the game more appropriately as teammates. Hey, maybe Salamanders are actually the ones stealing the stims. The most frequent I see in my runs would be Deathwatch Ultramarines, Black Templars, Imperial Fist, Salamanders. Interesting. Okay, it seems like Salamanders, a lot of people are playing Salamanders. Are Salamanders actually overrunning the game now? And then they're about to get a chapter pack. Imperial Fist, dude, to me personally, I understand their colors and everything, and I still have a hard time recognizing them in game, because I feel like their insignias and everything's very similar to Ultramarines, and sometimes, yeah, I just get confused. But obviously, if their colors stand out, like, yeah, the Phoenix colors would stand out. Black Templars, another one that's sometimes hard to recognize, and yeah, because they're black, sometimes I just think it's Raven Guards as well. So it's either or, right? If you see the white, it's probably Black Templars. But yeah, not to mention with the new chapter pack, or sorry, the new champion, Black Templars are probably a little bit easier to see now. Dude, yeah, that Black Templar champion bulwark looks amazing, and not to mention the legs that you can use with that champion skin really go together for so many different chapters and colors. It's so good. It's so good. One of the best legs in the game, for sure. I mainly dress my Astartes as Celestial Lions primarily, and Grey Knights. I'd say I get the most excited when I spot another Lion or Grey Knight. If I load into a lobby and both players are Deathwatch, I'll change into my Deathwatch fit. That's cool, dude. That's a very good way to do that. Is this, okay, you know what? How many players do you think, like, they queue in, they'll notice two players of a, like, specific chapter, they'll go and, like, switch up their colors. How many players do you think get kicked for doing that because they take too long to do that? I would really hope none. I would really hope none, but yeah, I was just curious because maybe it's not them switching up their build or anything. They're just going to go switch up their colors, actually. And then they get lost in the cosmetic tornado, you know what I mean? But, okay, so also Grey Knights I kind of wanted to comment on. As far as we're never... Dude, the amount of people who said Grey Knights for the redacted champion is very interesting. I wouldn't want to see a Grey Knight chapter pack or a Grey Knight champion unless we, for whatever reason, legitimately get a Psyker class in the game. I just don't think that's gonna happen. I genuinely think we're gonna get Lightning Claws before we will see a Psyker in the game. However, though, if the devs ever answer a question about us getting a second new class, yeah, it will be time to speculate, but I'm not even 100% sure. See, here's in my head right now, as far as the year 3 would go, you know, after year 2, Lightning Claws, that would definitely be a very sick second anniversary treat, essentially. But let me not get sidetracked. this chapter conversation is actually a little bit more interesting in my opinion, because this is actually something we're dealing with in the game right now, and it's kind of interesting. I guess you could call it the sociology around it. Maybe it's just like who picks which chapter and what is their play style like, and then not to mention what colors do you see most often can also play a part. But I kind of want to understand chapter-based play styles. I think that would be kind of sick. Alpha Legion. Haven't seen anyone besides me though. Okay, I think this is a joke, right? This is a maybe this is a lore-based joke. Some people are underneath commenting, I worked extra hard on my disguise today, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I think this is a good place to lead off. Hey, maybe we will revisit this when we get the Salamander chapter pack. If Salamanders actually end up overrunning the game, that would be kind of funny. We really need an event that can log which chapters are completing which missions, and then we can really compete with that, dude. That would be kind of sick. I wonder if there's a way we can do this within the community, I'm not sure. That's very cool. It would be easier for PvP, but wouldn't it be cooler if we actually set like specific missions for certain chapters? Dude, oh man, okay, I don't know if I can do anything about this, but honestly though, if you guys have any good ideas with a way to implement that would be very cool. I hope the devs maybe could also get that idea. I'm not too sure if the devs would ever be interested in basically a chapter competition event, but not to mention if the devs did it, it would probably be like, oh, you have to play Blood Angels or Black Templars or something like that, you know? I don't know. Regardless, this conversation is very interesting. I kind of want to see more stories, more chapter-specific playstyle stories from you guys. Let me know in the comments if you actually have a certain behavior you want to attribute to the chapter you are playing. Sometimes I don't really think about it, but now I'm definitely going to think about it. Maybe if you jump in with a specific chapter, you start to play like a jerk. That would be unfortunate. However, I think if somebody ended up doing that, but they were actually lore specific, and yeah, they were like playing a character, as long as we still complete the mission, I'll get over it. If they steal my execution, but it's actually lore based that they steal my execution, I'll get over it. But yeah, that's definitely a funny way to look at it. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this one, and thanks for watching.